Hi everyone and welcome to Unit Review. We're your hosts Jack
and Dan.
Today we're going to be talking about the Nightbringer in the Necrons army, an absolute beast of a guy.
Yes, guaranteed to strike fear into your opponent when you drop him on the table, and we'll get into why, because there is a lot to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about. So Dan, you want to start off with the stat block then?
Yes, so he's got a movement of 6. We'll come on to movement in a bit, but the rest of his stats are really good. His toughness 11, he's got a 4-up save and a 4-up invuln. He's got 12 wounds, leadership 6 and an OC of 4. So he's already looking quite meaty, quite beefy boy.
Meaty, yeah. Now the only thing that person I want to say at this point is that the movement at face value looks a bit bad for this guy. He has fly, so he's not going to be moving across a lot of things, but we'll talk later about that. So ability-wise, though, this is kind of where he shines, really, isn't it? The abilities. So he has Deadly Demise, D6, so already he's going to be, if he explodes, he might do a bit more mortals. But that's not what you want him for. He has a Feel No Pain of 5+.
Brilliant.
That is incredible. So 12 wounds, saving on 4s, invuln save on 4s, and then +5 on Feel No Pain. That's
basically
really
for every wound that comes through a failed save, for every 3 wounds, you're saving 1 on the average dice roll. If you spike those dice, you're laughing.
And your opponent's crying. That's really good. He also has the reanimation, of course, being the Necrons army. So D3 wounds back. So that in combination with those other things being quite hardy, he's going to be bringing those wounds back, and often drains the life from your opponent more than that.
Speaking of drain life for your opponent, what a segue that was.
What a nice little segue, isn't it? It's like we're set that
up. You just teed it up for me, thank you.
So another ability that he has is it's called Drain Life. At the end of the fight phase, you roll a d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of this model. On a 4-up, that enemy unit suffers d3 mortal wounds.
Yes, it's a little bit swingy, but when it comes off, and if you've got him in the right place, you can do some real damage.
Exactly.
But that's not all.
But wait, there's more. The last ability he has is Necrodermis. Each time an attack is allocated to this model, you half the damage characteristics of that attack.
And this is what's so fantastic. So he's got 4-up invuln, 5-up Feel No Pain, and he halves all damage. He's a tank.
And reanimation. At the end when he gets it all back. So that combination, you can kind of see why this person's worth this many points, basically. But Dan, keywords, what we got?
Yes, obviously he's got the faction keyword of Necrons. The other keywords, he's a monster. He's a character. He's an epic hero, so you can only take 1. He's got fly, boo, and he's obviously got the keyword of his name, Catan Shard of the Nightbringer.
He does.
So pretty much what you'd expect from the keywords.
It is, and maybe for people at home who don't know why we're booing fly. So fly, you have to make it over terrain now, opposed to being able to fly through it.
So you've got to measure You've got to measure
from the ground.
From the ground up and over. In the past, you just measured horizontally through it.
Correct.
Fly,
But with fly, since the 6-inch movement that he has isn't enough to actually, you almost pretty much get on top of the building. So it's quite hard in places.
It's not great. And it ends up, you can fly over other units, which is handy, like enemy units, which is good. But with a 6-inch move, it's not going to cut that often. Yes, beyond that, we've got unit composition is fairly obvious here as well. It's straightforward, isn't it?
It is. He's an epic hero, so you can only bring one of these fellas. He's obviously one model by himself, but he's 295 points. So he has just been increased recently.
And we'll get into this, but anything under 300 is still really good value in my book.
Still good. And he has a special one where he's an enslaved star god. So this Catan cannot be your warlord. So you still need to bring another HQ that can act as your warlord.
We haven't got time to talk about this in here, but go and read the lore about the Catan. It's really interesting.
So good. But spot on. Wargear, Dan, what does he have?
Yes. So he does have a ranged weapon, which is the Gaze of Death. Which is like, it's like the stare your mum used to give you when you'd done something wrong.
But the damage seems to be from the dad.
Definitely.
You want to talk through it?
It's 18-inch range. It's D3 attack. So again, it can be a little bit swingy, but he's hitting on 2s, which feels right. His strength 12, AP 2, and damage is D6 plus 3.
That's crazy.
So when it goes off, it hurts.
At an unlucky tank, you could be taking down tanks. In a much easier way with that.
If you spike, if you get your 3 on your D3 and then you get all 3 hits and wounds through, then you're looking at a potential 27 damage.
There we go.
Yeah.
Again, it's potentials, but hey, strike the fear into your opponent. That is an option.
Yeah, you take a Land Raider down by looking at it. That's quite funny.
Exactly. And he's a monster, so they can fire out of combat.
Oh, yeah, very good point. Yes, very good point.
Yeah. Melee weapons?
Melee weapons. He has the beautiful scythe of the Nightbringer. He's got 2 profiles for this, as you'd expect. He's got a strike and a sweep.
Makes sense.
So the strike is 6 attacks hitting on 2s. It's strength 14. It's AP -4, and it's D6 plus 2 damage, and it's got devastating wounds.
Unreal. So the devastating wounds does the, what was it again?
On wound rolls of a 6. It does a dev wound.
That's the
so
one,
you don't get an armor save against it.
Don't get an armor save. It's scary. That damage output is incredible.
And the sweep attack's not bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. Do you want to talk for it?
Yeah, so you get 14 attacks here. You're still hitting on 2s. It's strength 8. AP 2 and damage 2.
Yeah.
So that's a real marine killer.
But I say marine killers at the end of the day, Look at you against sweepers, almost like I say, I always ask what is the toughness of your guys before I make my judgment of which one I want to pick, because if I'm versing Terminators, probably gonna go for the for the strike.
Yes.
Whereas if it's just normal chaff units, definitely we're going for those just marine ones for the strike.
But he really does pack a big punch.
Yeah, it's really good. Stratagem wise, not many for this unit.
I mean, it would be almost too cruel if we could be buffing even further with strats, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's already a big tough cookie, so there's not many strats. I mean, when I say not many, there's really only the one, and this one can come in clutch in a really good spot. So the one is in the Hypercrypt Legion. It's called Cosmic Precision.
Yes.
So people probably know I know what it is, but basically in your movement phase, you select one Necrons unit from your army that is arriving from using the Deep Strike or Hyperphasing ability. You can set up this unit anywhere in the battlefield that is more than 3 inches away from enemy models. So not 9, but 3. And then this unit cannot charge during when it came in using this ability. Now that's really good, because getting him in the back line early doors, turn 2, he's tough enough to not need a charge. He can withstand a lot of attacks coming at him.
Yeah, sometimes when you're deep striking stuff in, you are forced to wait a turn or not do it at all, because the clapback's going to be too hard before you can hit them.
Exactly.
But the Nightbringer is so tough. He's either going to absorb all of your opponent's attention, or he's going to survive and then go and do his own thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good one, I think.
It is really good. Now, since there was no other stratagems to talk about, I thought I'd just add in the hyperphasing actually detachment rule is, because typically this is the best attachment, one of the best attachments to run the Nightbringer in, really. Because the hyperphasing one, basically at the at the end of the
it's end of your opponent's phase,
at the end of the opponent's turn,
beg your pardon,
that's all right. You select basically up to 3 Necron units if you're playing Strike Force, which is 2,000 points, which most people are. You get to basically remove 3 of your Necron units from the field, and you're able to basically deploy them later on, and you're back in your movement phase. So really good, basically, just to bring them back in at different angles.
It plays into what you were talking about before in terms of that movement 6, doesn't it?
Yeah. Moving 6, they're going to really struggle to get up the board. So, we'll talk about that later on when it comes to how to play them. But repositioning them is kind of really good.
Really powerful.
Maximize the atmosphere of getting
particularly when you've got to think like that cosmic precision strat you were talking about. You're coming within 3 inches, you can't charge, but he's got his gaze of death. And if he's close enough to enemy units, he's going to chuck out those mortal wounds at the end of the fight phase as well. So
it's like a nice little a little media kind of thing. It hits the ground, shoots out, and explodes at the end of the fight phase. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, it's pretty tasty.
Cool. So we've got a few ways on how to play them. Dan, do you want to start off?
Yes, thank you again to the Necron community on social media. We reached out to them and said, we've got some ideas, but what do you guys think? And, I mean, the guy is a beast. You can use his durability to kind of bully your way onto objectives and stay on. In terms of the reanimation he's got alongside the 4 up invuln and the 5 up feel no pain and the halving incoming damage we talked about, it makes him very, very difficult to shift.
It certainly does.
You can use him as a beat stick or a distraction kind of effects, or both at the same time, with some confidence that there's not many things you're going to be able to take him down in a turn. Exactly. Sometimes your opponent can't take him down in 2 turns. Nah,
not at all. And then again with the reanimation that he gets at the end of the phase, he's just going to be healing. So it's so literally when you see your opponent just fade, his face goes white because he's like, wait, I've only done 2 damage, but you're now healing 3. It's like, welcome to the Necrons.
Exactly.
Sorry, not sorry. Kind of thing.
And you come up with this second one is really interesting as well in terms of baiting.
I like it. Yeah, because he's so tough. You can kind of do this sort of stuff. So another play that I like to do is you place this unit out of position just to make your opponent misplace, and then basically you use your Hypercrypt Legion to teleport elsewhere. So basically, turn 2 comes on, you basically take him off at the end of turn 1 and bring him in turn 2 in a completely different place, which means that your opponent is positioned all of their maybe big anti-vehicles.
You've lined up all the guns at one side,
yeah, and then now you're over here. You're like, haha, I've played you kind of thing. So I really like that. And again, even if like you misplay him or put him in the wrong position, he's tough enough and durable enough to warrant your misplay.
Yes.
So, and again, using the Hypercrypt Legion allows you to basically reposition to be, all right, I've messed up here, I'm not out of the game, I'll reposition them elsewhere in a much better play, and I'm tough enough to fall over on my turn 1 mistakes.
Yeah, we'll talk about it about playing against him, but it stops your opponent playing around him.
Yeah,
like because he's only got 6-inch movement. If he's like saying in the middle of the board, your opponent can just kind of flow around the edges. So he can't. So he ends up being 295 points that can't impact the game.
True, but then now with Hypercrypt, you're literally like, oh, actually, well, if you're avoiding me, I'm going to make you not avoid me by coming in. I like that. Yeah, it's good. That is good. Number 3.
Yes, this one is another one that you noted, which I think we just touched on. But this 3-inch strat, the Cosmic Precision strat, you can get it's another level to what we just talked about there. You can get even closer to units that really don't want you to be close to them. And it's one of the benefits of the Nightbringer model being the old Finecast model still. Is his base is I think it's 40 mil base or 50 mil base. It's a small base.
So I think it's 40. But because it's very small, you can get them anywhere, especially for those backline like indirect fire ones, the basilisks, or the marine ones, where it's just like, all right, they're going to be at the back. And you don't care. It's like, oh well, I do care. I'm now here, and then it's like, great. It's like you're not. I know you're the basics. I'm going to be able to take this Nightbringer down. So I'm going to get in your face next turn. So it's a good way of doing it. I mean, even to get like engage on all fronts. Sometimes you like teleport a unit back in their home field. And you're like, oh right, this unit's going to be a waste. I'm only doing it to get the 5 points. I'm going to lose them. Are they worth 5 points? Sure, but for this one, you can put him in engage on all fronts and know that he's going to survive and be like, all right, I've got 5 points and I'm in your home field. I'm causing you chaos now.
Yes. I mean, you're getting two, and you're getting two kind of uses for one, because you can put him in there and then you, like we said, you can still do some damage and he's a real threat that your opponent has to deal with.
Definitely.
And if you're not in the Hypercrypt detachment, there are still some tips and tricks into how you can position him or move him best, isn't there?
Yeah, there certainly is. So if you're not using the Hypercrypt Legion, because to have that, I guess, that flexibility of moving around, it's really good if you're versing like a very melee-focused army, such as like maybe Orcs or World Eaters. You want to position your Catan quite far up the field to kind of zone out a possible charge in turn 1, because this guy is he's a menace in combat. So having him screen up forward puts off an Orc player, puts off a World Eater player from being like, well, yes, I could theoretically get into combat, but do I really want to? Am I gonna survive the clapback? Probably not in a lot of cases. So it's kind of that deterrent of like, oh well, look, he's up front, he's protecting my front. Charge if you want, you probably won't survive, and it's a bit of a waste of a war, because the rest of my army will probably be quite far back. So a war just for one Catan might be worth it in the long run. But
I think it's a really good idea because those armies don't have the big gun capability to cause them a problem. I mean, against anybody else, you're hiding in behind terrain for line of sight for obvious reasons. But if your opponent has only got pea shooters, then why not stick him up front?
You kind of almost want to antagonize the Orc player to push their war, because if you've got them up front, it's like, oh right, well, if the Orc player goes first and they're wanting to war, it's like, right, well, do I really only war this one unit, or do I wait until my entire army is kind of there? Because if they don't war turn 1, well, you know he's going to be getting in your face turn 2. So it's kind of like, it's a hard balance. So it's kind of puts them on the back foot.
Yeah, I like that. As we talk about a lot, giving your opponent hard choices is what we're trying to do here. Lose choice.
Well, the last one we got then for the
it's a similar one. Another one, if you're not playing Hypercrypt, if you start him off the board, keep a CP in your back pocket for rapid ingress. Because again, he's got a very small base. He's easy to get into those tight areas. So drop him in and cause your opponent some problems.
Definitely. I think it's that one's probably a really good one, because you want to make sure you maximize this guy, because he's like 295 points. So rapid ingress just allows you the flexibility of, right, he's now here. And again, he has the sustain to come in and maybe in quite an open area just to
take a bit of a beating.
Charge next turn too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it. Cool. So that's the best ways that we can see about playing it. And that was a couple of examples that we've seen online. So again, thank you so much for basically letting us know about those ones. But how best to play against this unit, Dan? You want to start off with this one?
Yeah. So I think things that cause mortal wounds. Obviously, we talked about he's got high toughness and halves damage and stuff like that. But mortal wounds are getting past his invuln save is a big deal.
It's hard.
You're putting him straight on his 5-up feel no pain
straight away. Yeah.
And if you've got powerful units with high strength, then you can do some real damage in tank shock for a start.
Shock. I mean, I've seen that firsthand on Sam's channel. But yeah, 2 tank shocks at the same time.
Yes,
that was tough.
Yes,
that was hard. Took down, I think, 6 wounds?
Yeah, he's capped at 6 wounds a tank shock, and obviously you get your feel no pain on top of that. But it's still, on an average roll, you're still looking at suffering 4 mortal wounds. And on a bad roll, you can
and
take
I had
the full
2 of
6.
them coming at me. He still survived, but he was hurt. He was very much hurt.
It's a very, very effective way of getting him. If you can't kill him, it'll certainly wound him.
Certainly scare him. It certainly scared me. The next one is popping any strat that provides lethal hits to bypass the wound roll. Basically, this guy has toughness 11, so most things are going to be kind of wounding them on 6s, if not 5s. So anything that bypasses your wound roll, guaranteed a good opportunity, especially if you've got a high volume of attacks coming in. Even those 1 damages can get through. Those 1 damage hits, I'm not going to be getting the benefit of halving that damage, so that's coming through, automatically passing the wound roll. That's just scary.
Yeah, weirdly, Necrons do this quite well, because obviously all of our Gauss weapons have got lethal hits on them. So if you've got lethal hits baked into your list, then make the most of them against him. Absolutely.
Well, I guess that's how they took down the Star Gods to begin with.
Yes.
Nice little callback to the lore. But cool. What about the last best way to play them then, Dan? What you got?
I think if your opponent's puts him in reserve or is playing Hypercrypt, then screen well. Particularly if you're playing like an MSU list or a Horde list, like 120 boys, all boys. We're starting to see in the meta. You can if he hasn't got Hypercrypt, he has to come in outside of 9 inches.
Correct.
Which or you're forcing him to spend a CP on the Hypercrypt strat to come in within 3. Yeah. So good screening is if he's not on the board, screen well, and that can really help. Means your opponent can't put him where he wants to affect the game.
That's true. And even if you screen out with those cheap units as well up front, it means that even if he is going to come in, he's going to charge those cheap units.
Yes.
And it's almost like a waste, because then you will have the full flexibility of, right, that cheap unit's going to be gone, but no worry, I've got all my shooting, all my charges, and all that sort of stuff coming at him after that. So
good point.
Yeah, I really like that. You have one last thing to say then for this unit?
Yeah, as much as I've just bigged up the fact that he's got a very small base, GW, can we please have a new Nightbringer model? So that he just looks out of place now, particularly compared to the Void Dragon. Void Dragon's beautiful. Transcendence are great models. He needs a glow up. He needs to be a bigger, more imposing piece on the board.
He does. For this stat block that he has, we need something more menacing on the tabletop for sure. Perfect. Well, I think that's the entire unit covered.
Yeah, really enjoyed that one. He's my Nightbringer could learn a bit from yours. Mine rolls a lot of 1s.
Yeah, it certainly does.
But he's a fantastic unit. If you're not using him, get him in some lists and try him out, because I think you'll really enjoy it. And you'll scare the hell out of your opponents. And also, obviously, if there's anything that we've missed or there's different ways that you play the Nightbringer, let us know in the comments.
Thanks so much for everyone who shouted out to Dan as well about how best ways to play them. We'll put your names on screen as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.